Donald Trump calls for death penalty for dealers to combat opioid crisis. President Donald Trump officially proposed imposing the death penalty for certain drug dealers on Monday in New Hampshire, arguing that the federal government is wasting our time if it isn't willing to put some traffickers to death. President Donald Trump vowed Monday to liberate the United States from the epidemic of opioid abuse as his administration released a broad slate of measures to tackle the crisis. Failure is not an option. Addiction is not our future, Trump said during a speech in Manchester, New Hampshire, a state that has one of the highest rates of fatal drug overdoses nationally. We will not rest until the end, and I will tell you that this scourge of drug addiction will stop. It will stop, Trump said. And in a promise that will be very difficult, if not impossible to fulfill, Trump said, we will raise a drug-free generation of American children. The opioid epidemic is now the deadliest drug overdose crisis in U.S. history. Nearly 64,000 people died of drug overdoses in the U.S. in 2016, and at least two-thirds of those deaths were linked to opioids such as illicit fentanyl, heroin, and prescribed painkillers. The total drug overdose deaths were higher than the number of deaths linked to guns, car crashes, or HIV/AIDS during any single year in America. Based on preliminary data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, 2017 was even worse. Mr. Trump pledged to fix the crisis when he took office a year ago, but has so far struggled to make headway on an epidemic that kills an estimated 115 Americans a day due to overdoses, according to the government-funded National Institutes of Health. Drug-related murder is already a capital offense in the United States, but no one has ever been executed using those rules. Officials indicated there would be no attempt to change the law to make the death penalty mandatory for trafficking alone, a move that could well run afoul of Supreme Court rulings on proportional punishment. It's possible that our country's not ready for that, Mr. Trump conceded. And I can understand it, maybe. Although personally, I can't understand that. So although experts widely agree that much more treatment and harm reduction policies are needed, and apparently the White House does too, we don't know how the Trump administration plans to get much of that done. We do know, however, that Trump wants to make greater use of the death penalty for drug offenses.